Our intro music is provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on My Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Well, we try to be, interesting. Maybe not the best, but maybe not the worst either. Well, anyway, on the news today, Amazon announced that all employees starting in November, regardless of what they're making right now, if they're making under $15 an hour, guess what? That's going to be the new starting wage at Amazon. Well, maybe they realize people can't live on $10, $12 an hour. I hate to say it, try to live on $15 an hour. Well, at least that's a start, but, with the way the cost of living is, it's horrible. One of my sons just moved out a few months ago, and he's in an apartment. And he came home and he said, Dad, with the money that we make, we're paying $1,200 a month for an apartment, and then we have electricity, and then we got food, and after we pay the rent and electricity, there's no money for food other than cup of noodles almost every night. Well, you know what? They need to do something to really structure the wage right where people can actually survive. And what are we heading into nowadays with all the earth changes and wars and all this other stuff? Antarctica keeps getting worse, what the reports are coming out of there. The flooding on the East Coast, I don't know. And maybe they got to do some disclosures on UFOs here shortly, I hope. Anyway, tonight we got Douglas McWilliams on the show right after this.
Night Dreams, Scary Story Night on Friday nights. Call in at 9:30 p.m. Pacific at 1-253-203-6695.
Well, here I am, and down at the compound, I hate to say it is raining. It's getting kind of chilly out. If you ride a motorcycle where I'm at, forget about it here very shortly. Hey, tonight's guest, like I said, was Douglas McWilliams. Hi, Douglas. How you doing tonight?
I'm good, Gary. Yeah, it's nice to meet you and have a conversation about these topics that I've been interested in for most of my life.
Well,
and try and share them, get a voice for myself in the world.
Well, you got a good place to do it. I mean, our listenership is around 200,000 and growing on each episode.
Yeah.
And it is a live broadcast, too. And what the people who aren't listening now are downloading it. A lot of our biggest listeners, I hate to say it, are truckers out there that download it and then play it at night when they're making a long run. And then out of the UK, we have a huge audience.
Yeah, that's impressive. And I think this is an audience that is growing. I think more human beings are waking up to these concepts that maybe we're not alone in the universe. Maybe there's deeper questions that we should all be looking for. And through the search for those answers, it's going to affect how we live our lives and treat each other. It's really all connected.
Well, I know that we're not alone in the universe. I mean, let's face it.
Yep.
I mean, it's just like saying the world is flat. Now, I'm sorry. There are some people out there that listen to my show that swear up and down the world is flat. Well,
yep.
If it is flat, tell me why the oceans just don't run off the flatness. But anyway, you're going to be talking a little bit about UFOs, aliens, our universe is actually a star, and supernova and all that stuff. Well, let's get started.
Okay, yeah, I'll be happy to share some of the theories that I've come to through the experiences I've had in my own life and relating those experiences with, classic stories. I think, we look at modern scientists, for the most part, are skeptical about that there's a God and intelligence behind the universe, that we are alone. And I think one of the key things that they're missing as they look at these different branches of science, be it quantum physics or electromagnetism and understanding Einstein, they're forgetting that we have to incorporate, we are storytellers. That's part of our nature too. And we think about the concept of what time travel is. Is it possible? To me, one way to think about time travel is to understand that when you pick up a book that was written 500 years ago or 100 years ago, that those words, they were written for you right now. That's time travel. That author is having a conversation with you right now, and we go through most of our life kind of being blind to the importance of that. But I think we come to a point, all of us, where it's like this overwhelming wow moment. Wow, those songs that I loved, I was drawn to, the movies, the books I read, that they were all preparing you for that rite of passage. And like I just met you right before we started the show. I think as we talk about the paranormal and our place in the universe and aliens, it weaves, it's tied in with our concept of God and the nature of our soul, right? It's all tied together. That we help each other, that through the generations, through that rite of passage. A lot of our classic stories, we can look at Greek mythology, look at like The Matrix, those movies and stories that question the nature of reality, that they're blueprints to get through those times. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, it does. And like the writer for all the Star Trek series,
Oh, the original, right?
Yeah, the thing is, some people just had the gift to, fantasize about the future, and they were very accurate on their dreams of the future and how they thought it would be. Well, it's all coming about. Back when I was a kid, I remember going to the World's Fair in Seattle in 1961, and they had, all these things, what the future is going to be. One of them was like the flying car, and my dad said, "Oh, there'll never be a flying car." Well, you know how close we actually are of that actually happening, where you're going to see traffic on the road, and then above you're going to see cars. Yeah.
Oh, like they say in religion, that through God all things are possible, and I think the same is true of science. And these are two endeavors that seem like they're on disparate paths, but I think they're going to come to the same conclusions. There is an intelligence, universal cosmic intelligence, call that God, that proves that our flesh and blood may die, but we are eternal, souls, creatures of the universe. So it starts with a dream, and maybe it's from an actual sleeping dream, but whether it is or isn't, all those artists and those storytellers, that you ask them where it came from. It came from somewhere else, another dimension. It was a gift. It was handed to me, and that's why I'm writing my novel right now. The crazy things I've seen and experienced, and to have that revelation of what we are when we evolve from stars, right? I mean, scientifically, we know that, and I think most humans don't reflect on that. Look at the sky; those are your ancestors, those stars. A star has to look. First of all, scientifically, all the atoms in our body, in our known universe, in the earth beneath you, and our houses, the stones, they have to be created inside of the nuclear reaction happening inside of stars. Heavier and heavier atoms are built up in that star until someday that star produces iron in the process. And then that production of iron, boom, the start of a supernova, that star is dead. And once it explodes, and then that process gives life to everything else. So if we evolve from stars, I think maybe that's really what we are. We're light creatures. And Nikola Tesla told us that over 100 years ago. And maybe the most brilliant mind in human history, and I put Einstein up there with him. But Tesla said everything is light, energy. And I think this flesh and blood experience, it's a game, it's a dance. And so light doesn't die, and understand too that what Einstein proved to us is that when as you move through space at the speed of light, the time doesn't pass. And that's another. I know I get onto all these abstract tangents, but yeah, time doesn't pass. Einstein proved that to us. Our concept of now is not the reality of now. Einstein exists right now. Dinosaurs exist right now. Other dimensions of space-time, but it's every bit as real as we exist in this moment. And they might be uncomfortable concepts to think about, but I mean, it might disagree with our perception of reality. but it's been proven.
Well, you know,
reality is not what we think it is.
well, you know, I always, ever since a little kid, I always had the philosophy, okay, we're in our dimension, right? And there is other dimensions we can't even comprehend. So, you know, right now in your living room, maybe a dinosaur is like grazing on grass, or, you know, there's a big skyscraper right there. And, you know, we don't know it because it's in a different dimension. It's in a different plane.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think there is a lot of value in thinking that way. And like, let me say something too about my own personal journey and why it is that I feel like I've maybe been destined or called to be this voice. One of the key events in my life was I stopped watching television about 12, 15 years ago.
That's a good move. No, you
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Well, so stop, because we waste so much of our time and brain power on meaningless television programs that aren't advancing our life. We're not given a true portrait of reality, and we're bombarded with advertising about. Go ahead.
No, I didn't say anything. No, I was just listening to you
get
there.
some interference there. And you're bombarded with advertising about what food we should eat. Or how much whiter our teeth should be, and all this nonsense. And after about 6 months of not being influenced by television, man, my mind opened up. I had time to think about things. I had time to read, and I had time to look at the world around me. And I totally get that analogy of the Matrix, the false world that's kind of put up in front of us. And you don't really awaken to it until you, turn off the TV and stop being influenced by all that nonsense. And then I've also had a natural curiosity about things, right? How everything works. And Einstein was always one of those figures in history that I was drawn to, his story from as a child, and fascinated by the fact that when he was about, I think, 6 years old, his journey started when I think his uncle or someone gave him a compass, and he was contemplating what makes the needle point toward north. And I realized something. That guy was destined to do exactly what he did. He couldn't have been a world-class violinist or soccer player, but he was wired to do exactly that. And based on that thought, then I would wrestle with the concepts of free will and destiny. And that's a tough nut to crack. Are we destined to do something, or do we have free will? And what Einstein, the conclusion I kept coming to by contemplating his theory of relativity, was that he says the past, it exists, and therefore the future also already exists. And if that's the case, then we don't have free will. And I couldn't accept that. That's my conclusion, because then it's meaningless. And this was years ago. Then I came to the conclusion, well, yeah, it all exists, but there are infinite futures that we could experience. And so there's a paradox of it. It exists, but which one of those are you going to experience and live? Then you are free.